This house is a house of truth-seeking, says Ken Patton in the words of our meditation. The fourth of our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles is a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. In the words of retired UU minister Christine Robinson, we used for our chalice lighting, we light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning. So truth is important in this house, whatever house you happen to be in this morning or this evening. And equally important is the knowledge that we derive from discovering the truth. Unitarian Universalists don't settle for hunches. We don't buy claims without evidence for them. We don't take it on faith, because the Bible tells me so is never good enough for us. We strive to be a reality-based religion. Good or bad, happy or sad, our faith steps up to respond to the world as it really is. So we want the truth, as close as we can know it, even if it hurts. What's the truth of climate change? What's the truth of our national history? What's the truth of what happened on January 6th a year ago and the events that led up to it? Being reality-based means when it comes to the internal or the psychological or the spiritual, we want to know what's real in those realms too, just as we want to know the reality of the material world. So what is the truth of freedom and free will? What is the truth of our human nature? What is true about God and the afterlife, as much as we can know? We are, in all of our religious concerns, a reality-based religion. We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth. As Ken Patton says, we want to be a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers. So, to be a truth-seeking faith, a reality-based religion, we need a method to distinguish the false from the real. We need a path to follow that leads toward truth. We need a tool that sifts fact from fantasy, a method that is both free and responsible, as we say in our fourth principle. And fortunately, such a method exists for us, and Ken Patton names that too. In this house, he says, we offer a platform for the free voice, for declaring both in times of security and danger, the full and undivided conflict of opinion. You know, this is a house of truth seekers because we offer a platform for the free voice. You know, our faith follows a free and responsible search for truth and meaning because both in times of security and danger, you will hear in our churches the full and undivided conflict of opinion. That's the method that we use to distinguish the false from the real. That's the free and responsible path that leads to truth. And that's also the method that's called liberalism. And that liberal method, our platform for the free voice that supports the full and undivided conflict of opinion, allows Unitarian Universalism to claim the name liberal religion. Now, you've probably heard that phrase, liberal religion, used to describe our Unitarian Universalist faith. And perhaps you thought, as I did when I first heard that phrase, that to be a liberal religion meant that we were liberal in our politics. Because, of course, on one side, we know the religious right, and we must be then the religious left. We are church-going, sermons and hymns, past the collection baskets, candles and coffee hour, but politically liberal. So we're liberal religion. But that isn't what liberal religion means. Liberal in this sense is cousin to the words liberty or liberation. Liber, the root word meaning free. We are a liberal religion because we are a free religion. In the words of the hymn from Tranquil Streams, which I sang earlier, our liberal religion is free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need. Our liberal religion is free from many elements which bind other religions. We are free from a constricting tradition, which would be an orthodoxy. We are free from authoritative scripture, as in fundamentalist religions, and we are free from a dominating hierarchy, as in denominationalism. Our liberal approach to religion was born 500 years ago at the time of the Enlightenment, when there was a general blossoming of the liberal spirit in all aspects of human life. In government, liberalism expressed itself through democratic movements away from authoritarian governments, like monarchies. In science, liberalism evolved a method to determine objective truth, freeing science from the authority of religious myths. In economics, liberalism harnessed the power of the free market to set prices for goods and services. And in religion, liberalism birthed Unitarian Universalism, a religion where individual conscience is free, subject neither to pope, nor priest, nor prophet, nor scripture. The principles of classical liberalism, whether in government, science, economics, religion, or elsewhere, rest in how we answer the questions: how do we know what is real? How do we seek the truth and feel confident when we find it? And in short, how can we claim to know anything? So do we listen to an authority like a king or a pope? Do we read the answer from a sacred book? Should we defer to one group of people like the elders in our community? Or do we try to identify the smartest or the strongest among us and follow their lead unquestioningly? Well, the liberal answer to those questions is that we discover the truth by hashing it out all together, every one of us, through a platform for the free voice, respecting the full and undivided conflict of opinion. So you can think of liberalism as a kind of a game. The players enter the playing field with their differing opinions about the truth. They play by engaging in debate. They argue, they offer evidence, they publish their research in peer-reviewed journals, they challenge, they defend. The goal is to identify a shared truth, which would be the winner on the field. Everybody goes home, though, with more knowledge. Now, the rules of this liberal game are two. Rule number one, everybody has to play. If you want your opinion to be considered, you have to put it on the field, debate it, and defend it. Nobody gets to stand to the side and say, well, my opinion is beyond debate because I'm a special person with special access to the truth. Or to say, my truth comes from a holy scripture that cannot be questioned. Or my knowledge is based on a personal revelation that only I can experience and can't share with you. Appeals to any kind of special authority like that are out of bounds in the liberal game. Every opinion that wishes to be considered as possibly true has to get on the field and defend itself with evidence, with reason, and through debate. And rule number two, no knowledge that we discern is ever final. So the game continues to advance in round after round, but it never really ends. No truth claim is ever beyond criticism. Even long settled knowledge that we think we know for sure has to remain in play. You can't ever say, this truth is grounded in a wisdom tradition centuries old and unchanging. The meaning, the very meaning of knowledge in this liberal system is when this idea is repeatedly tested and probed and further explored, it continues to prove itself on the field as the best description of reality. When John Milton says, our faith and knowledge thrive by exercise, as well as our limbs and complexion, he is describing the play of the liberal game. When he says the light, which we have gained, was given us not to be ever staring on, but by it to discover onward things more remote from our knowledge, he's giving us the second rule of the liberal game. No knowledge is ever final. Every new knowledge we learn is a light that guides us further. And when Milton says, here of necessity will be much arguing, much writing, many opinions, it sounds like he's giving us a play-by-play commentary of the action on the liberal playing field. Milton wants to give the players the liberty to argue freely according to conscience, above all liberties. That's the most important freedom we have, says Milton, to be able to argue freely. And yes, all that arguing sounds uncomfortable. If you're going to play the liberal game, you have to be willing to let your ego take a hit. You might get your feelings hurt as your theories get picked apart. But debating ideas is also kind of exciting, like the fun of any competitive game. Ken Patton's The Full and Undivided Conflict of Opinion sounds like a sportscaster calling the Super Bowl. A Super Bowl of liberal truth-seeking. But what of the danger that with all of that arguing, the truth that we're searching for will get buried beneath opinions that are patently offensive or repugnant or just plain foolish? Aren't there some ideas that we should just banish from the field so we can get to the truth faster? Well, Milton says no. He writes, though all the winds of doctrine were let loose to play upon the earth, so truth be in the field, we do injuriously to misdoubt her strength. For who knows not that truth is strong next to the Almighty? She needs no policies, no strength. Make her victorious. Let her and falsehood grapple. Whoever knew truth put to the worse in a free and open encounter. If we allow the game to play out in a free and open encounter, the truth will out. When we set up policies and stratagems that bar some ideas from the field and attempt to force one idea to the top, we break the liberal rules. That's cheating. And the truth suffers because we're no longer looking for the truth. We're simply crowning my truth. And we're stopping the game, which prevents our good ideas from getting even better through criticism and refinement. As Milton says, we have allowed the stream of truth to sicken into a muddy pool of conformity and tradition. Well, that's not liberalism. And as a liberal religion, if we lose liberalism, we lose something essential to our faith. If we lose liberalism, we lose who we are. If we allow, policies and stratagems to silence the full and undivided conflict of opinion in our religious pursuits, then we may have earned a temporary respite from the noise, but we have thwarted our liberal truth-seeking in favor of an orthodoxy, a fundamentalism, a denominational conformity. We are a liberal faith, but in our churches in the last several years, and in the larger society around us lately, we seem to be losing our faith in liberalism. I'm used to seeing challenges to liberalism from the political right. Religious fundamentalism, strongman authoritarianism, policies that ignore science, leaders that argue from emotional rhetoric instead of evidence, white racist nationalism, unhinged conspiracy theories. Many on our political right recently seem to have abandoned the value of truth entirely. But I'm also seeing attacks on liberalism from places I'm not accustomed to seeing it, from the political left, and in our Unitarian Universalism too. Here is the danger I see. I see attacks on the game of liberalism itself, who gets to play, and how play is conducted on the field. I see sincere opinions prevented from being entered into free debate. Liberalism doesn't require giving a forum to cranks, but we should be careful who we call a crank. And a contrary opinion that is even 1% true can be helpful in advancing knowledge. I see some favored opinions being granted the right not to be questioned. But good ideas require testing just as much as bad ideas do. And even a mostly true idea can be made even stronger when it's asked to respond to criticism. I see players appealing to special knowledge in defending their opinions, knowledge that can't be shared by everyone. When a player says something like, "You can't know this for yourself, you just have to believe me," they are substituting belief for knowledge. Knowledge always belongs to everyone, and trust me is not an argument. I see players using claims of harm or hurt feelings as an excuse to withdraw from the debate, yet still expecting respect for their ideas. Attacks against persons are intolerable, but criticism of ideas is how we advance toward the truth. That's how we play the liberal game. And then there are the more serious attacks against the very premises of liberalism. For instance, liberalism requires that we acknowledge an objective reality. It is illiberal to consider reality a cultural construct and thus deny any possibility of a shared knowledge of that reality. Liberalism employs truth-seeking tools that are neutral, available to everyone, and work the same for everyone. It is illiberal to consider reason, debate, and the scientific method to be no less subjective than myth and intuition, thus, again, placing shared truth beyond our reach. And liberalism requires that we recognize, firstly, our shared humanity. It is illiberal to consider a person's status in a subgroup of humanity to be more fundamental to their identity than the humanity that we all share together, which would mean walking away from the goal of world community that we seek in the sixth principle of our faith. If we abandon liberal premises, we abandon the premises of our liberal religion. There is no shared truth to search for. There's no objective reality we could base our religion on. And there's no usefulness in debate or meeting in community because no shared understanding is ever possible. On the other hand, liberalism works. The advancements in human society over the last 500 years under the liberal method are undeniable. In science, in medicine, in technology, in human rights, and in religion, too. Life under liberalism has gotten demonstrably better in the last 50 years for people of color, women, gays and lesbians, and disabled persons. Yet, liberalism, despite its success, its progress is too slow for some. As lives do improve gradually, some suffering will continue, and that's hard to bear. And the progress of liberalism rarely moves in a straight line forward. So the liberal method is frustrating for those who have a more radical spirit and who are self-convinced of their vision for the future. Some feel they can jumpstart the change they seek by substituting disruption and dismantling for debate and persuasion. Perhaps they feel in these dangerous circumstances we don't have time anymore for liberalism. I understand the frustration and the impatience, but liberalism is the best path to the truth and to the world of liberty and justice we seek. Liberalism requires the free exchange of ideas, so conflict is expected, and conflict is hard. But liberalism is the proven answer both in times of security and danger. If everybody plays, if everybody is allowed to play, if everybody understands the requirement to defend their opinions through evidence and reason, not appeals to special authority, and if we agree that no proposed truth is ever beyond question, then liberalism works. We can move forward on our search for truth. Propositions become knowledge. Humanity gains a closer approximation of reality. Erroneous beliefs are corrected, and any laws or cultural norms based on those wrong beliefs can be overturned. Suffering eases, society progresses. If we lose liberalism, we lose the best tool humanity has ever had for overcoming injustice, easing suffering, and advancing human society. Let us not now abandon the method that has been so effective for so many for so long.